question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the member for Riverina.
And I echo the fine words by the member for Sturt, who, as he explained, is very much across these issues and the importance generally of trade. And I'm glad we also have in the chamber, as I rise to speak on the Customs Tariff Amendment, Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership Expansion Bill 2024, the member for Hinkler, who between 19 July 2016 and 20 December 2017 was an Assistant Trade Minister, the Assistant Trade Minister indeed, following on from the former member for Moncrieff, Stephen Chabot. And in his time, he worked hard on negotiations for RCEP. He was involved heavily in what was a year of tourism with China, our largest trading partner. He did a lot of negotiations in the Pacific, in Tonga and elsewhere, and I commend him for the work that he did in that trade role. Of course, we had former member for Cowper, Luke Hartziger, also follow on in that role, and the current member for Parkes as an Assistant Trade Minister. But also I want to acknowledge the efforts whilst we're in coalition between 2013 and 2022 of former member for Goldstein, Andrew Robb. I mentioned the former member for Moncrieff, Stephen Chabot, before, but Senator Simon Birmingham and the current member for Wannon in particular. And trade is important. And during our term in office, when we concluded, 71.3% of trade and exports were covered by free trade agreements. Now, when we took office in 2013, that number was around a quarter, 25%. When we left office, it was nearly three-quarters. And what does that mean? Well, if you believe in the concept that around 1 in 5 jobs in Australia is dependent on trade, it's probably more likely 1 in 4. It underpins the Australian economy. And I know the Treasurer, the member for Rankin, in his budget last year couldn't bring himself to talk about coal and iron ore and those wonderful mining exports. He just talked about the things we sell overseas. But it's critical that we do acknowledge what those exports have done and helped us to reach budget surplus twice. And the high price that is being paid globally for iron ore and coal in particular has helped us reach budget surplus twice. Very little to do with the member for Rankin and Labor's policies, but a lot to do with what we do in regional areas. And noting today that former British Prime Minister, albeit briefly, in her term of office, Liz Truss, was on the floor of the Parliament, and I certainly went over and welcomed her. I felt sorry for her actually while she was Prime Minister. I think she got the raw end of the pineapple, but it's very much Australian colloquialism. But coming into a difficult time and received no help from some of her colleagues. But and she, to be fair, worked with member for Wannon, but then Trade Minister Tehan to work through trade relations with Australia before she took over the High Office at number 10 Downing Street. But whilst we're in office too, it's important to note that 1,213 major transport projects supported 100,000 jobs. 100,000 jobs which were also underpinned largely by trade. And if you have the right road networks and rail support systems and ports, seaports, and obviously we invested heavily in airports as well. If you have the right infrastructure, you can boost trade. And any self-respecting member, and every certainly regional member, knows that only too well, because it's regional areas which during COVID and before COVID and post-COVID, not that we're out of the woods yet by any means, but they have supported our trade, our balance of payments, and this is what this bill is about. And when you think about the more than 1,200 mobile black spot base stations funded by the former coalition government, also critical on trade. Why it's critical on trade is because with the deregulation of particularly the wheat industry, with so many farmers now reliant on making their own trade deals, making their own market deals, they need good mobile phone coverage, and they got it, and we're certainly working on improving access for our farmers to markets all around the world. And this particular legislation, the opposition is supportive of. We understand that this involves a plurilateral free trade arrangement between Australia, Brunei Darussalam, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, Peru, New Zealand, Singapore and Vietnam. Now, the agreement was signed on the 8th of March 2018, back when we were in government, and entered into force for Australia on the 30th of December 2018. Our relations in the Pacific and our wider trade agreements have never been more critical. Never been more critical than right now, because this agreement, we appreciate as coalition members, as members who understand trade, as members who fostered trade, as members who want to see more trade with more partners. It's one of the world's most comprehensive and ambitious trade agreements. It eliminates all but 2% of tariffs in a trade zone, which represents a combined GDP of $14.6 trillion and a population of 580 million people, and that is a lot of people. And we are absolutely delighted with the accession of the United Kingdom to the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the CPTPP. The UK, as the member for Sturt outlined, has long been, always been, a great trading nation. It started back in the late 1700s. Indeed, with the rules-based multilateral trade system obviously having a big say on this, the UK possesses a strong track record of compliance with trade commitments that all CPTPP members must have in place. Now, the UK is the first non-original member of this arrangement and European country to join the CPTPP and is now set to become the 12th member, and we welcome that. Australia once traded on the back of our sheep, our wool, our sheep meat. We very much largely were riding on our luck, our fortune rode on the back of a sheep. That is not the case anymore, although our sheep farmers are very important to us, and certainly as the member for Riverina, I know that full well. I am disappointed about the ban, whilst I talk about sheep, of the live sheep export trade, because I think that sends a very bad message to the Gulf states, to the Middle East, about trade. It does. The phasing out of that up to 2028, I think, is a bad move, and it will be reversed when next we get into government. Hopefully that will be, if not later this year, certain feeling in the air today, next year maybe. And I hear the little laugh from the member for Hasluck over there. You can sense there's something in the offing. I think Labor are clearing the decks, and hopefully the voters will clear the decks at the next election. But as I say, the UK's addition builds on the foundations of the Australia-UK Free Trade Agreement, which entered into force on the 31st of May 2023. And I want to pay a special tribute to Member for Wannon for the negotiations that he did with Ms Truss and others to bring about stronger trade relations with the UK. When I say stronger, they've always been strong, but he enhanced them. He further developed them. And this arrangement that this bill helps to enter into and puts Australia's seal on it will enhance the UK's engagement in the Indo-Pacific in support of shared prosperity, security and regional stability. And the Trans-Pacific area is very volatile at the moment. The geopolitics are very important that we get the balance right, and we are. And when we talk of the Pacific, I would like to think that Australia speaks as one. I've been to Pacific areas with the Foreign Minister, Senator Wong, with the Pacific Minister, and certainly with Senator Birmingham, to ensure that the Pacific Islands know, as the Prime Minister has put many times, that we are their first nation of choice. We are their preferred partner. And I don't agree with everything the Prime Minister ever utters, but I do agree with him very much on that score. The UK is a welcome addition to a network of countries committed to free and rules-based trade. And that sentence in itself is very important. Free and rules-based trade, because not everybody always plays by the rules. And I know we have the World Trade Organisation that is very much there as the referee or umpire, but Australia always plays by the rules. We always do. As the member for Sturt said, and as the member for Hinkler knows, we produce the finest quality food and fibre, and we do expect to be treated when we sell our wares overseas in a free and rules-based order. We do. And when we don't, we will complain. We will take action, and because Australia deserves no less. And as I say, we as Liberals and Nationals had a very, very proud track record of backing Australian farmers, backing Australian businesses, backing Australian miners to be able to sell to the world. Because we've always been a trading nation. We have been in the past, we are now, and we will certainly be that in the future, irrespective of whatever policies are put in place by those opposite to potentially shut down a lot of our mining interests. We, as a government, had an ambitious trade agenda of Australia's 16 free trade agreements in place at the moment. 13, all but 3, entered into force under coalition governments. 13 out of 16. And that was due to the hard work of the member for Hinkler behind me and those others I mentioned. 1 in 5, as I said, Australian jobs trade-related. I'd almost say that's higher. I'd almost say that's higher. And on average, businesses exporting, they employ more staff, they pay higher wages, they achieve higher productivity compared to those which are just domestic suppliers, those which are non-exporters. Now, between 2013 and 2022, the Coalition Government finalised 11 trade agreements, including the FTA with the UK and the Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement with India. And they weren't easy to do. You would think that the UK would almost be a tick and flick, but indeed, the Australia deal, finalised when it was finalised, was described as one of Ms Truss's aides as the hardest thing she's ever got through. That's according to Wikipedia, and of course Wikipedia is always right, but it would be accurate on that score. And I know, having spoken to the member for Wannon, it wasn't easy, it wasn't straightforward, but it was achieved. And it was achieved because of the good work of the coalition. It was achieved because the world knows that we produce the best food and fibre anywhere. We implemented 9 trade agreements in government, lifting the share of trade, as I say, from, I said a quarter, figures 27% in 2013 to more than 70%. And when you take into account India and the UK FTAs, that takes it above 80%. So we had a good track record. I'm very supportive of whatever Labor can do to build on that. Indeed, that is why this bill is important, It's important to, as a representation to our farmers, that the government supports them, because on many issues, unfortunately, they've shown by their policies that they don't.